welcome. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Patrick van Uybergen. I am the Managing Director for the Ti2 Group, and I'm welcoming you to the first of hopefully many CODESYS training webinars and courses. So our goal here is to provide you with some short introductory courses and then move that to longer, maybe half-day courses, and then the full-on certified 3 to 4 day courses that CODESYS offers. Before I hand you over to Roland Wagner for CODESYS Germany, I just want to give you a very quick rundown on Ti2. Most of you know us, but some of you don't. So I'll just share my screen here. So Ti2 was established in 2000. We were back then called Thin Ice, but after too many skating on jokes, we did decide to change that quite a number of years back to Ti2. Ti2 consists of 4 business units, and today's business unit is Automation Products, which consists of CODESYS, Softing, Helmholtz, Elgens, MPL, Berghoff, Genstech. And really our focus with our products is modern automation, so field bus gateways, diagnostic tools, OPC products, industrial PCs, and so forth. We also have an engineering services division, and we do a fair bit of research in medical and sport. Our company philosophies are listed here, but the 2 main ones I want to talk about is with regards to open standards. So we feel very strongly about open standards, for example, IEC 61131, but also the open field buses, and that's where CODESYS fits in really well for us. So our motto is to lower overall costs, to standardize on technologies, and not brands. That's exactly where CODESYS fits in very well, so I'm going to talk about that a little bit further. The other thing that I think is really important is our industry, the automation industry, is moving very fast, and what we could get away with 10 years ago and still do it maybe a few years ago, that same old 10 years technology is no longer valid. So with the IoT and cloud-based demands of our customers comes a whole new range of products and skills that we should be up with. So I encourage everybody to keep learning and to upskill. For example, not long ago, everybody was talking about OPC, but now the protocol MQTT is being talked about. And if you don't know what OPC or MQTT is, then I encourage you to look those up, because these are important parts of our vocabulary these days. Why CODESYS for us? So when I met Roland 1.5 years ago, we discussed our philosophies and they discussed CODESYS philosophies, and one of the key parts that we all agree on is its openness, and we got on very well actually, so because of that. So CODESYS is IEC 1131 compliant, so you have all the key languages, and you know, we actually believe even before CODESYS you should be using 1131, and CODESYS is just a really good champion of that. CODESYS supports hundreds of hardware targets, so you have a real wide selection, and that comes from dozens of hardware vendors. So I've just listed a few here that are probably well known in Australia and that we are talking to about CODESYS and doing projects with at the moment. So Exor, we're talking about training courses with them. IFM and Phoenix, we're talking about training with them as well. Wago, SEW, Berghoff in Germany, Advantech, Turk, also have a very wide range of CODESYS capable products. Schneider, Beckhoff have a beautiful product called Twin Cats. IEC 1131, very flexible. So if you want a list of devices, go to devices.codesys.com, and even though not all products are listed there, because not all vendors have their offerings there, sometimes the vendors supply them themselves, you'll just get a feel of how many products there really are. CODESYS covers motion control and safety, IoT, cloud, redundancy. It has a really nice built-in HMI and web visualization tools. We can connect to databases, so it's super flexible. And the range of industries that it's used in is very wide. So already we've been working in the last 1.5 years in factory automation, process automation, and building automation. So there's just, it's such a widely used product and supported by so many companies and industries. So that's it for me. I'm going to hand you over to Roland, and we'll talk with you after this webinar is finished. So thank you for your time so far.
Thank you, Patrick, for the introduction. In fact, I will do the same, a little bit more graphical in some minutes. So please don't get annoyed. It's just a few minutes, then I will go into a live demonstration. Okay, the question is, what is CODESYS? And in order to show you that, I have prepared some slides which are more marketing, but however, I will go to the techniques in a few minutes. So let's start from the beginning. This is a PLC, an industrial controller, and of course, the purpose for such a device is to control a machine. In order to do that, it needs to be programmed. Yeah, who is doing that? Of course, this is an application engineer. Why an application engineer? Because he knows the machine and what he should do. And of course, he knows as well the customer's interests best. So he knows what to do. In normal use cases, such an application engineer is not a computer scientist. Therefore, it's necessary to prepare that tool for the programming of the controller in a way that an application engineer is really feel comfortable with that. For this purpose, typically, such a tool comes along with special languages, and Patrick already mentioned the standard IC 61131. We'll cover that in a minute. But perhaps you know the situation in the past and even today. There are, of course, many different such PLCs, controllers, equipment for controlling units, for different applications, for example, for mobile machines, for building automation. They are called then building controller or electronic control unit, or they're called industrial PCs, different devices. And in the past, it was the problem that there were different tools. So those tools could not program devices which were not from the same brand. This is, of course, a pity, because this urges the application engineer to have different tools installed. This is not that comfortable. Therefore, it would be desirable to have one tool which covers all these different devices. And this is exactly what CODESYS is. This is one tool which can control devices from different brands for different purposes, and therefore it's a kind of universal tool. Yes, and this tool, as Patrick already said, is conformal to this international standard IC 61131. So this means it covers all the languages which are defined in that standard. Okay. For example, ladder diagram, graphical language, which is based on relay technology with coils and bulbs, and then the function block diagram, which is based on blocks, which you can graphically combine. Then here on the right side, the sequential function chart, a graphical language for programming sequences, and last but not least, the high-level language among these languages, the structured text, which is nothing else than a Pascal dialect integrated. Perhaps somebody misses instruction list. This is as well a textual language, which is a little bit old-fashioned, therefore regarded as deprecated. Therefore, I do not list it anymore here, but it's still available in case you want to use that. Okay. Seems that my computer has today a little bit of problem. So this is the reason why I was a little bit late in the morning. Okay. However, CODESYS is not only a programming tool, but it includes as well visualization. So this means you can realize graphical user screens. It includes field bus systems with configurators and protocol stacks. Furthermore, it includes motion control, CNC, and robotics. You can immediately realize motion control systems with that tools without leaving it. And last but not least, it includes safety possibilities. So all these functions are seamlessly integrated, are sometimes options. However, they are there. Now, how to make a controller programmable with CODESYS? There are two different possibilities. Those of you who are device manufacturers, you can implement the so-called CODESYS runtime system. And for that purpose, we support a lot of different CPU platforms. So the most common Intel, ARM, Infineon. and the most common operating systems such as Windows, Linux, VxWorks, but of course some other CPUs and operating systems. For those of you who are users and you just want to use, for example, industrial PCs, you find in the CODESYS store as well soft PLC systems that you can immediately install on such devices or boards and make them into compatible controllers. Now, CODESYS is used by many thousands of industrial engineers worldwide, application specialists, and this is due to this range of different functionalities. And we know that a lot of these guys are really fans of the tool just because of these add-ons that I just mentioned. Furthermore, they like that the tool is as well suited for the modern technologies, so Industrial Internet of Things, or as we call it here in Germany, Industrial 4.0. So it has the connectivity to cloud systems, therefore to artificial intelligence and machine learning. So you can immediately benefit as well from these modern technologies due to the fact that it includes communication standards such as OPC UA, MQTT, HTTPS, HTML5. So all these standards are seamlessly integrated in that platform. Okay, so this was the short introduction. Now let's go to another slideshow, which I will just skip right now because I want to show you that in a live mode. So I go to my CODESYS development system, and I just want to start with a new empty project so that you see how it really looks like working with CODESYS. So we'll start from the scratch. Of course, I have prepared a little bit. However, I really do not want to start with a prepared project, but from the scratch. So this is the empty new project, and I can now here select for the device that I want to program. I could have selected dedicated device. In this case, I have just my computer here, and therefore there is a soft PLC already running, CODESYS control win, which I could start and stop. And this is the device I want to control. Of course, I could easily change that by update device, and I could select from other devices here, which are already pre-installed by so-called device descriptions, which are nothing else than device drivers. So, but let's stay with that. And the first thing, I just build up a connection from my PC here, which is that sign here, my notebook PC, via so-called Edge Gateway, which is a service which I need to configure my communication from the PC to the device. And then here the device, which is not yet connected, I can scan it, scan the network, which is below here, and see, okay, this is my computer connected here. And then you see that this bubble will turn into green, and I'm connected. Good. So let's start programming. And you've seen that I have chosen, or that I have the possibility to choose different languages. So in case I want to add another one, POU, I can choose different languages, and there are exactly these languages which I just mentioned here. You see some additional ones. Perhaps I give another word to that, but in this case, I want just to work with that most modern one, the structured text, which is Pascal-like. And what I want to do is just a quite simple application. I want to have a trigger, which is a Boolean variable, and in case this trigger is set, I want to count a counter up. So this is quite simple, and you see that CODESYS already helps me during programming. It tells me, hey, there's something wrong, therefore we have this red underlining, and it tells me you need to define that variables. So I could do that in different ways. I could, for example, just go here. This is the declaration part, and type X trigger and declare it to bool. Okay, do it like this, and you see this appears here. Or another way is to press the F2 button. Just a moment. The F2 button, and then this opens a so-called input assistant. Or even easier, I press on that bulb here, and I can immediately declare this as a local integer variable. And so that it is. I can now log into my controller and test my first simple application. Yeah, we have already established the connection. Remember here. Oh, okay, just press once again and it's green again. So now I can log in, use that icon here or online login. So there was already application running. This I want to just overwrite. And you see immediately, as soon as I'm logged in, the first step during login, of course, the application code is compiled into the right format of the target CPU, which is in this case my local computer. But in case I had another device based on an ARM CPU or on any RISC CPU, then it would be compiled in that format which the CPUs understand. So we have real self-developed compilers inside the tool. And as soon as I'm logged in, the whole look and feel changes a little bit. I just repeat that once again. So the declaration part where the variables are declared is now switched into a watch window. And down here, even the code is animated. So I see even here the variables in their actual value. So I can start now the application. You see down here that this was stopped. So it's red. So I can start it. And then it's running. And as you see, we are in live mode and nothing happens. Yeah, due to the fact that this xtrigger variable is still false. So we can change it to true by debug right values, or we could, of course, use a short key Control F7. And then we are running and the application is working as expected. Okay, so we could start a little bit debugging and press the F9 button, for example, which causes a breakpoint. And then I can now step by step execute the code that is line by line and step by step that should be executed and see what happens. So this is quite comfortable for debugging my application. Can reset that again and then start the application, and it's of course then running again. That's another breakpoint in here. By the way, there is even a breakpoint dialog. So in case you want to see the breakpoints you have set, we can push that down here and just set the breakpoint again, and can immediately control where we have breakpoints and see which breakpoints we have used in order to have an overview and not to get lost inside of breakpoints in case I do any commissioning or something like that. Okay, so this is quite easy, and you see already a lot of possibilities that the CODESYS development system brings. I have programming, I have debugging, I have integrated compilers, and the whole work is quite easy and comfortable. Now let's go to the next step. Of course, it could be interesting to do the debugging by means of graphical interfaces. For that purpose, I will now integrate as well a visualization. I just right-click on the application and add an object, which is called visualization. When I do that for the first time, this takes a second. I can add some graphical libraries in case I want to. It's not necessary for that small example, but however, when I do that for the first time, it takes a little bit, and you see that there are a lot of things done in the background. We can see what is done in the background when we take a look at the so-called library manager, which we did not before. However, we can do right now, as soon as that is done here. Okay, still operating, so it seems that my computer is a little bit slow this morning. Yeah, for us it's quite early in the morning, so perhaps the computer has some human touch too. Okay, here in the library manager you will see a lot of libraries, and by default there are only a few of them loaded. But with adding a visualization, you see here that there are many so-called visualization libraries loaded, and this is the reason why it takes some seconds. And furthermore, you have seen that there is not just one object here, this visualization added, but a manager, visualization manager, which adds automatically so-called target and a web view. What this means, we will see in a second. Okay, but let's start with the visualization, which is my operator screen right now. And for that purpose, I can draw a little bit. So first I start with a nice background, and I want to set that background on the position in the left corner. So, and I want to have a nice background, therefore I make a gradient color. Black is too dark, perhaps we take something blue, and I'll do that in a way like this. So we have a nice background, and as the next step, we want to integrate some controls. For example, we want to switch that variable X trigger, which we just used. For this purpose, I have a dip switcher X inserted in here, and I connect it with the variable. From my application, X trigger. Okay. And I want to do the same thing with another element, take a meter element, which I put in here. And we connect that with the counter. And in order to be able to set the value of the counter, I will just add a very basic element, a so-called rectangle, which I configure then to be a text output for the variable, and therefore I choose a placeholder %s for that variable I counter again. And I want to make it configurable via input, so I just make an input configuration for the variable that is chosen as the output. So it's the display. Okay, you see this is quite fast. Of course, this is not a training, this is just a short presentation. And now we want to see what happens if we log in again. So first step, we see that there's already the former application running. We will overwrite it right now again. And in this case, the compilation of the application takes a little bit longer because all that you see that the code is tremendously increased. We had before 90 kilobytes, now we have 1.4 megabytes. This is due to the fact that the graphics are as well compiled. And now you see two different screens. I switch back to my CODESYS development system. So you see that the former editor is now turning into an online mode. So I can now immediately work with that. And furthermore, there was a blank screen open. This is the so-called target visualization, which we have in here. So you could use, instead of an operator screen, which is running within the development system, a full screen mode, which is of course much more suitable in case we are running such a visualization on a machine, because you usually do not want to offer the operator of the machine the possibility to do something inside the programming. Therefore, you can really have a separated screen which he can just use for operation but not for programming. However, I can use now both of them. I can switch now that switch in here, and you see that my meter element which just just configured to a maximum of 100. So in order to change that, I can of course reset that to 0 and stop it shortly before. And I could do the same thing here as well on that target visualization. Furthermore, you see that there's a second option here, web visualization. For that purpose, I go to my Firefox browser, and I have a short link here already connected, which is localhost webvisu. And you see the same screen here again. And I can now reset that to 0 and start the counting up again. Yeah? So this is quite nice in order to visualize what I'm programming. Of course, this is not only handy during the operation of a machine, but as well during commissioning, because you can then much easier prepare the screens for the commissioning purposes. So almost every CODESYS user works with that visualization because it's integrated, and in the first issue directly inside here in the development system, it's free of charge and you can immediately benefit from it. So I switch back to my presentation. This is what we have seen here. Now we have started the CODESYS, made a new project, inserted a controller, built up the connection. We had the editing and realized the first simple project, logged in and downloaded it and executed it. And we already went to the second step. We integrated the visualization and operator screen. As I did it here. Perhaps we add another object. I could do that. I forgot to do that. Perhaps we do that right away. We insert a trace element, which is quite handy too. So this is under special controls. Insert the trace. Perhaps we move that a little bit to the right. And then in the trace element, I can now add variables which should be traced. For example, in this case it's quite easy. We have just two variables, iCounter, which will then be displayed in blue, and we add the other one, the xTrigger. You could choose, for example, another color. Let's take something dark red, for example. And what we have to do is to define the task in which this trace will be executed. Log in once again. And you see here that CODESYS offers even a possibility called online change. So this means that the application is still running on the controller, and I can not overwrite it, but I can just add, for example, in this case, the new visualization, but I could do the same thing as well with code part. So this is just added, no variable information, no values are lost. I'm just continuing with the work. And you see here that I have now such a trace running, and as soon as I start, and as soon as I change that variables in here, we see the tracing. It's just a little bit too fast for seeing as well the switch. We see it a little bit here, that there is as well the switcher, which is the same scale, of course, 0 and 1, a little bit too small to see. Okay, so this is visualization. Now we can operate it via the development system or via the web browser or in the target visualization, as we've just seen it. Now we want to as well communicate with the outside, with the physics outside, and for that purpose I need, of course, some inputs and outputs, some IOs. As I said, I'm working here with a notebook computer, so it's quite hard to directly connect some senders or actors, and for that purpose I have now special device with me. I can show you that. This is a small EtherCAT field bus coupler, which I've connected via Ethernet to my computer. And now we want to animate that. And I go back to my CODESYS development system and go to the device and add here another device. You see there are different options. In this case, I go to the field buses and I take EtherCAT, insert an EtherCAT master, and I add the device. Again, here this takes a second because again here there is in the library manager a new library implicitly included, the IO driver EtherCAT, which realizes the protocol stack. And I could do now in two different ways. I could, at first step, I need, of course, to configure which EtherCAT, with which Ethernet port the EtherCAT will be using. And I could type in the source MAC address if I know that, but it's, of course, much easier to browse the possible and available Ethernet ports on my computer. So this takes sometimes a little bit longer. Let's see whether it works. here it is. Here's the screen. And you see that I have different options. In that case, I will take that Realtek USB to Ethernet adapter because I have already connected my standard built-in Ethernet port to the network. So I take this one here, have automatically the MAC address connected, and then I could configure manually by adding the devices which I have connected here. This is one possibility, and of course this is a quite typical way to do it. There's another way, and for that purpose, for that another way, I just log in once again and make another download of the application. In this case, remember that we have included the library. Now this library will be as well compiled and downloaded to the controller. And that means that the library code, which includes the protocol stack, is immediately available on the controller, and I can benefit from the code on the controller. And in this case, I can, for example, just right-click on the device and scan for devices. And it should now search and find the connected devices. Yeah, you see here, there are 3 devices found, the coupler with some modules connected to that coupler. I can now connect all of them and copy them to the project. Log out again, and then I can configure them. We can take a look at that devices, and these devices, you see we have all the possibilities of these devices. For example, if we go to the input clamp EL1008, we can have the IO mapping, and we could immediately map the input variable to a special, we could say that, okay, this is XN, for example, XN0, for example. So then we have a new variable mapped. This will be immediately available as a global variable in the project, or we could do it in the other way around for the output. Instead of mapping, I could connect it via the address to the existing variables. And this is what I want to do right now. Go back and say, I want to connect that variable to person QB0, which is the first byte of that output area. Okay. We make a download again. In this case, there is no online chain possible so far because we have a change of the configuration. And now I want to show you the device again. So hopefully you can see the LEDs. Okay. Assume we have downloaded that. Of course, we need then to work with the visualization again. Takes a second. Okay, see the download is again a little bit bigger than before as the protocol stack is now once again downloaded. So we can start the application. Okay, then we see here on the left side, let's switch back, that from the red triangles, this is turning into these green elements, which shows that the EtherCAD stack is running. And if we open the visualization once again, and perhaps we do that in a side window so we can follow both. So then as well, the LEDs should run, and you see them, yeah? Stop that again, run that again. So what you've seen is it's very, very easy and simple to connect such devices and configure them, execute such applications, and realize then the communication to the physics in order to really control the physics outside, to read in sensors, to write out actuators. Okay, so this is what I wanted to show you in that brief presentation. Yeah, then last but not least, I want to show you what you could do additionally, because what we've seen here, this is all connected to my local computer, but I can now connect my controller to an online administration platform, the so-called CODESYS automation server. For that purpose, I go back to my browser and I open that CODESYS automation server, which is a cloud-based platform, and I log in. with my login credentials. Just once again. And you see here, this is a cloud-based platform. I can have a direct overview. Okay, there are already some devices running. These are listed with green bubbles here. Some are not available. How are they connected? They are connected to via a so-called gateway. Yeah, there are devices where the gateway is running, and these gateways are connected with a network of devices. And what I can do right now is I go back to my application and I connect now my local device via my local edge gateway, which is a service here on my computer. So I have the first step to connect it. So for that purpose, I need to activate a so-called edge gateway configuration. So this was disabled right now, but I can enable it. Then I need a name of a URL, which I can just copy. Copy in here. So then I need, of course, my login credentials as before. And then I can connect my gateway to this platform. And if we restart that or just reload it again, then my local, it's not yet, I forgot to add my name on the server. So my edge gateway. Okay. And then I can check and refresh and connect it to the server. Here we are, and then we should be having it here as well. Yeah, here it is. And if I scan that network, I will see the same soft PLC as before. I can now add it to the server. This, and then immediately see it again here under the list of devices. And it should be somewhere my local PLC. This is now, this is not, where is it? In order to have a better overview, I can switch the mode and should be available. Okay. Yeah, let's take another one. Just show it here. I can get further information on it, which firmware version is running there. Could even see which application is running there. And in case there's a web visualization integrated, I could even connect to that web visualization. Now, this is the soft PLC from my colleague. And you see, I'm not connected to the same network than my colleague, but however, I can open his web visualization. Hopefully this works, and hopefully there's really something running. Yeah, okay. Martin, thank you. In the background, he has prepared a small game here, and I could now run his soft PLC and execute and operate it by means of that web visualization. So you see, switching back to the presentation, that this CODESYS automation server gives me a nice possibility for administration, for administering my PLCs on the one hand and administering the applications on the other hand, because if I switch back to it, there's as well the possibility to upload all the applications in here to see in which version and which commit they are uploaded. I can even start right from here the CODESYS development system in order to edit it. Yeah, and remember, we're still working here on the cloud system, and then my local development system is started. I can add and edit something, upload the changes again to the server, and then from there commit these changes directly to the controller wherever it is located in the world. Good. Now, this was the live presentation. I want to conclude with some slides. This slide shows a little bit the overview, the product range overview of the controller of the CODESYS architecture. Yeah, we have worked here in the CODESYS development system, which is the base platform. Here we edit, here we work. It's the IDE, which is free of charge, which you can get from the CODESYS store. There are already some libraries included, but you can find further libraries in the CODESYS store, paid and free of charge libraries. Yeah, and with that tool, we can program the controller. And on the controller, there can be, as we have seen, the target visualization. There can be as well the web visualization, which we can then run and display in a browser. We can connect the controller via OPC UA, for example, or MQTT to a cloud system. We can directly connect with the Edge controller, with the Edge service that we have seen, to the CODESYS automation server. We can run the field bus systems. We can as well have these remote IOs as we have seen them. We can as well have motion control and safety, which I just skipped due to time reasons. Yeah, and what you see here, in order to make such a device a controller, a CODESYS compatible controller, you can purchase that runtime toolkit as a device manufacturer and develop your own adaptation to that device you have developed. Or as a user, you can just go to the CODESYS store again and purchase the so-called single licenses for soft PLCs running under Windows or under Linux and install them on standard platforms. So this should give you a whole overview on the range of products. Yeah, conclusion, CODESYS is a full functionality, full IC compliant device. It's a tool which includes all the functionality of the IC 61131, editors, compilers, debugging, with further integrated add-ons, as we've seen, visualization, I/O and field bus configuration, motion and safety, which I've just skipped, but what we have seen, the cloud-based administration. And you can download the whole tool free of charge from the CODESYS store, and as well some add-on components. As I said, we have a wide range of users. And last slide, there are sources for further information. For example, of course, the CODESYS website, codesys.com, the CODESYS store, store.codesys.com, or codesys.store, which works in the same way. And of course, as well, there's a YouTube channel where you can see some videos and stay up to date by on our RSS feed, or much more with our LinkedIn channel. Okay, this is it. I hand over again to Patrick. Oh no, I have some more slides. Yeah, just to show who is working with CODESYS. More than 400 device manufacturers, and I have a list of them in here with the logos. Patrick already showed you the names of them, and some customer projects in mobile applications, in building, in energy automation, in packaging, in many other things.
Sorry to interrupt you. Maybe one question from the audience that it's good to ask now. There's one question. It's to you, Roland. If you could change the controller, the device in the project, so everyone can see that it's possible to really change the device easily and without having to touch the rest of the code. So as long as your project is still open.
Thank you, Martin, for the question. Thank you out there. Yeah, I already said we can easily change the target controller. We right-click, update device, and then we can choose the device for which I need, of course, a so-called device description. It's, as I said already, a kind of device driver. And in this case, I'm working with a Windows-based x86-based device, but I could easily switch to another device. For example, this one here from Berkhoff. It's a PowerPC-based device with Linux. I say update device. So what is done in the background? All the compiler settings are rechanged to the device settings already prepared in that device description. So as soon as I have that device connected to my controller, I do not need to do something else than just connect the communication to the right device. So double click. Oh, my computer is still a little bit slow this morning. So double click, search for the device, and you see that my local soft PLC is now great here because it's not fitting to the device description, which I have now chosen. But in case I had that Berkhoff device connected, it would be available. I could just select it, connect to it, and that's it. Due to the fact that I have not used any local IOs, which are physically connected to the device, but in this case, a field bus system, that is all I need to change. So this is really very simple. And I have done that already during some live presentations in the past where I had a Raspberry Pi as a target system. And I had a complete application there with motion control, with visualization, even with safety device inside. And I switched from the Raspberry Pi to a PC-based controller, and it took me 2 seconds. In this case, I needed to adapt a little bit because in the task settings, the task configuration, the Raspberry Pi works with microseconds per default, and the soft PLC works with milliseconds. So this was the only thing I need to change. But then it was working from the scratch. I could download it, and it was running perfectly as before, with all the possibilities concerning performance and real-time behavior of the soft PLC running on a PC-based controller. Okay, are there further more questions?
No, currently no more questions.
Okay, then I'm at the end of this presentation, which was, as I said in the beginning, a short introduction, a very basic one. Thank you for the attention, and I'm happy to stay in contact with you via Patrick, who is our partner, down under.
So thank you, Roland. Just very quickly, I just wanted to go through what you've said today. I think it's very well concisely summarized what is actually a very sophisticated product, but just some of the key features. You've covered that very well, so thank you for that. I very much agree with you that the visualization side of CODESYS is very strong, especially when it comes to commissioning. We ourselves and some of the people that we work with use that very often, and very often that commissioning visualization then turns into an actual final system that the customer has in their system as well. So even though we use it for commissioning, it actually ends up in the final product. As always, I learn something every time I see CODESYS. There's so many tricks and shortcuts and so forth. So even though we've used it for the last two and a bit years, I learned even today in that short amount something. And one of the funny things for me was that a while ago I had an argument with somebody about, a robust discussion about using PLC to program an accounting package. We were discussing whether you could use a PLC for anything, and they said, I said, what about an accounting package? And they said, yes, we can do a PLC accounting package. And then when you showed your Mahjong screenshot, I thought, okay, maybe this is actually true. So thank you for your time, and thank you everybody for attending. We'll get in contact with everyone and see what the best way to move is. We're trying to keep this a bit fluid and really get feedback from the people who have attended today and from yourself as well, Roland. And thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Just one sentence from my side. We are already preparing the next, let's say, 3-4 hours presentation, which will be a little bit similar to what I showed today, but with much more tips and tricks and with much more in-depth information. So stay tuned. Thank you for attending.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, then have a nice evening and have fun with your beer.
Have a good day today.
Bye-bye. See you.